Hello and welcome to a conversation with Dr. Romel Tikku. He is the Associate Director at the Internal Medicine at the Max Hospital at Saket. Welcome back, Dr. Tikku. We've been having a lot of conversations during these times, and you are handling COVID also, which is really puts you right in the hot seat, in fact. But to begin with, I would like to talk to you about the current situation. Delhi has seen an alarming spike, especially. Do you see, is it because of our carelessness or is it because of the weather? Why do you see this is happening?
Well, for the last 3 weeks now, the cases are actually going down in India, except for Delhi, which has seen a huge spike. I think it's the third wave after June and September. Now, November it's going beyond the roof. I mean, so many patients I can't tell you. And the reasons are multiple for that. Apart from the fact that the air pollution levels are spiking and the air is so filthy, which is giving trouble to almost every other Delhiite, especially the elderly and the ones who have chronic medical issues. And then the winter anyway, when the temperatures dip, respiratory infections go up. Also because of the fact that you are mostly indoors and in close contact, the infection levels do go up. Whether it's flu or COVID, infections might increase in winter, and that's what is happening right now. And the pollution anyway affects lungs. We have enough evidence of pollution damaging the lungs. On top of that, COVID anyway targets lungs, so it's sort of a double whammy. COVID plus pollution, that's why the spike, that's why more mortality in Delhi. We're seeing increasing number of deaths also for the last 2-3 weeks now. And apart from that, I also feel the attitude of the people. People have just given up. Apart from the COVID fatigue, which we were talking about earlier, it's also to do with their attitude, which is like, let's see what happens. So it's enough is enough.
Jo hoga, so hoga. Very Delhiite.
So yeah, you see during the festival season, whether it was Eid or Diwali, the way people were thronging to the markets, there was no social distancing being maintained, and nobody's actually wearing a mask even now. In the middle of such a huge spike of cases in Delhi, even educated people are not wearing a mask. When they come to the hospital, they just pull it down to talk to us. I mean, after so much of awareness, so much of media showing so many things about the mask, social distancing, people just don't seem to understand. And that has also led to a huge spike. Now, we can blame the government always that they didn't do this, they see it coming, all the experts have been saying, but there's a limit to what they can also do. The central as well as the state government has been working on it. They're increasing the number. What is the need of the hour today? Increase the ICU beds. That's where the problem is. Because numbers, anyway, we knew numbers will increase. And most of them are still under home isolation. But the problem with home isolation is, again, multiple issues. People are not listening to the experts. They're listening to their neighbor, their friend who has had a past experience with COVID and doing whatever they are being told by them, or the WhatsApp university, whatever. We tell them have steroids, they Google, and then they get back to us. I didn't start steroids because these are side effects. You never told me. They don't really understand. They need to have faith in their doctors and they need to go with what we are telling them to do. This disease doesn't give you time. If you waste 2-3 days when you have a pneumonia and then you don't take the steroids, antibiotics, whatever you've been prescribed, you'll be in trouble. And that's another reason why there's a huge spike. People are just not listening to the doctors. They're listening to their friends and family. Apart from that, the way the Delhi government or the central government has increased the number of ICU beds, that's what we need right now. Because ICU beds is a challenge. 90% of ICU beds are actually occupied right now. And if we manage to increase the ICU beds, then we'll be able to save more people. And the focus is again on saving people now. And people have to also understand the fact that they have to stay indoors. They don't have to go, especially the vulnerable population, 60 and above, and with chronic medical, they don't have to step out of the house. If they do, then they have to wear a mask and maintain social distance and do all that. See, the government is doing its job, increasing the ICU beds, increasing the PCR tests. PCR is also a challenge. It's not easy to increase the number of PCR tests overnight. It needs manpower, it needs certain infrastructure. It's not like rapid antigen tests. And so Delhi is anyway testing a lot. You can't say that Delhi is not testing. But that's how the disease is. It's spread all over. Look at US. More than 1 lakh cases, almost 2 lakh cases the other day. I mean, with their kind of infrastructure and medical facilities. And Europe is again burning. So India will not be an exception. And with the kind of problems that we have, population now in Delhi specifically, the pollution, the winter, the attitude of the people, I mean, one has to be responsible. We can't just pass on the buck. all the citizens of Delhi have to contribute. All of us have to fight together. The least they can do is to wear a mask, which is your only vaccine till the actual vaccine comes into play. So if you wear a mask, you do reduce the risk of transmission of infection. And that's what people have to understand. And I was surprised there was no big deterrent earlier for it. Now they've increased the fine to 2,000.
So you welcome this increasing the fine to 2,000?
Of course, I've been saying it all along. There has to be a deterrent. If you can fine them thousands of rupees for breaking a red light, then why not for this? Why not for wearing a mask? It has to be done. Otherwise, people, you know how they are, especially in Delhi. They're not going to follow the rules, the norms. And if there's a breach, fine them. Subsequent breach, double the price of imposing the fine. I mean, that's how you are supposed to deal with it. In UK also, they're doing it. 200 pounds or something they are fining, in subsequent offense, they increase it. I mean, all of us have to be in it together, whether it's government, healthcare workers, people have to understand. And that's the only way. Otherwise, numbers will go up. As all the experts have predicted, there might be 15,000 cases a day. And then our healthcare system would collapse the way it did in Europe earlier. Because how much can you take? There's so many people who are falling sick at the same time. And there are a lot of young people also who are having pneumonia and respiratory failure. So it's not limited to 60 and above.
By young, you mean what? From 30 to 50?
30 to 60 is also having problems. They're also having, especially 40-50 age group. I have lots of patients of 40-50 age group who have pneumonia and they don't have comorbidities. And they also need admission. So that false sense of security, which we had earlier, that we are young, 40-50, nothing will happen to us, is not working with COVID. So
but the recovery rate in young is faster. Is there some...
Nothing like that. I don't think so. There's nothing like that. It all depends on your innate immunity, the way your body responds. And nobody can predict how a particular individual will respond to the infection. It has a lot to do with your genes. It has a lot to do with your innate immunity. I mean, there's so many factors, apart from the fact that whether you're a smoker, whether you consume alcohol, whether you're a diabetic, comorbidities, so many things. So it can hit anyone. It can cause problems to anybody, whatever be the age, whatever be the religion. It doesn't care whether you're rich, poor. So all of us have to understand that we have to be very responsible for the next 2-3 months. Otherwise, the way we are going, it's going to go up, spike again and again, and a lot of people will be in trouble. And the attitude that it won't happen to me doesn't make sense, because it might not happen to you, or you might just come out of it. But once you get back home, you give it to your folks at home, you give it to your colleagues at your workplace, they give it to their family, and that's what is happening. And I was
asymptomatic carriers.
Yeah, and I was surprised during Diwali, people were partying like there's no tomorrow, as if there will be no Diwali next year. And shopping, and fine, you do it online, but you don't have to go to the markets. You don't have to party. I mean, most of my patients who had COVID in the last 2-3 weeks were the ones who were socializing. They're the ones who were attending Diwali dinners, had called over friends. And see, you have to understand that the moment you take out the mask, 50% risk is already gone up. Because now you'll be eating, and while eating, you talk, you laugh during conversations, and that's how it spreads. And that's what is happening actually to people. They don't understand it, but that's how it is. The moment you step out of the house, you wear a mask, and you only have to take it out once you're back home. It is difficult, but that's how it is. Otherwise, you'll end up getting it. And that's what is happening to people.
Basic as that. And that's a very impassioned plea from someone who is there on the front lines, really. So he knows exactly what he's talking about. And if that's all it takes, I think that's a huge message out there, which needs to be reiterated again and again. But doctor, also about the vaccines, we're hearing now the focus is also shifting on this. People think vaccine aa gaya hai. I mean, I've been reading up, there seem to be about 180 vaccines in preclinical or clinical trial phase, out of which I think 9 are, the human trial. And we've heard a few names, we've heard that Pfizer, for instance, is ahead of the race. Moderna has just come up. There's a Russian vaccine. We have 2 Indian vaccines also in play. Can you just educate us a bit about which one do you think is best suited? Which will be India's best bet?
I think 4-5 vaccine candidates are the front runners. And if you talk about the Indian vaccine, which will be the best for the Indian population,
yes,
I think the front runners would be the Oxford vaccine,
AstraZeneca.
the AstraZeneca one. They have a tie-up with Serum Institute. and they're in the phase 3 trials.
This is the Covishield, is it?
Yeah, that's the Covishield.
ICMR wala.
No, this is not the ICMR. This is Oxford University with AstraZeneca with Serum Institute.
Okay.
So they have a tie with Serum Institute. Serum Institute has already manufactured, I think, millions of doses of this particular Covishield vaccine. And they started it much earlier, anticipating that the trials will go through. And they're in the late phase of phase 3 trials now, stage 3 trials. And I think it's 90% effective. That's what the preliminary interim data says. And the best part is it's also showing a good immune response in the elderly. So, so this is something which is very promising. Now, why do I say this is promising is because of the fact that it's already been manufactured in India and the trials have been going on in India. So see, the vaccine response also depends on the ethnicity, the race, how each individual will behave differently with the vaccines. So if the trial has been done in India, it makes more sense. Plus the manufacture, it's not only the vaccine, whether it's the phase 3 trials are through or not. It's about manufacturing, distribution. There's so many things, cold chain storage, things like that. And by the time it reaches people, so that's why the Oxford vaccine is important for us. The AstraZeneca Covishield one, which the Serum Institute is manufacturing, is important. Apart from that, our own indigenous vaccine, Covaxin, which is developed Bharat Biotech with ICMR. That also seems to be promising. And they've also, their data, preliminary data also says that it is very effective, more than 90%. And in fact, the phase 3 trials are starting today, I believe, in Haryana. And the most important thing about this vaccine is that it is indigenous. It has been manufactured here. It will be manufactured here, and we can increase the manufacturing. Distribution won't be an issue. Availability won't be an issue. Cost won't be an issue. And the trials have been, this is the largest COVID vaccine trial in India, more than 26,000 volunteers in the phase 3 trials. So we'll know more about this vaccine, more data, there'll be more transparency. And as I said, manufacturing, distribution shouldn't be a problem. So for India, the best bet would be the Covaxin, which is the ICMR and Bharat Biotech vaccine, or the Oxford vaccine. The Oxford vaccine had some initial setbacks with the one person getting some neurological problems, but later on the trials have begun all over, especially in the US also, where it was halted for a long time. So best bet is Oxford, followed by the Covaxin for us. Now, there are 3 vaccines which we've been talking about generally. And Moderna, which is said that their vaccine is almost 94.5% effective. And the Pfizer, a lot has been spoken about the Pfizer vaccine.
That's for the first of the block.
Yeah, 95%. Both are US-based. Both are mRNA vaccines, and both need a cold storage.
What does mRNA mean? I've heard this term, but
it's a genetic component being used to spike immunogenicity. And there are different ways of, the Oxford uses a vector. They're different. These are technical things. So, but for the Pfizer vaccine, the problem is that you have to maintain a cold storage of minus 70 degrees. And logistics are going to be a huge hurdle for a country like India. And as far as I know, I don't think India has some tie-up with them as of now. And we've been talking to all the companies, and maybe something will happen in future, but it seems to be a little difficult and a big challenge as far as the Pfizer vaccine is concerned. Bringing it all the way here, it's minus 70, and then storing it. And again, these vaccines have 2 shots a month apart, and giving the vaccine to 1.3 billion people, 2 shots, it's going to be a challenge. And even with Moderna, though the Moderna one can be stored at minus 20 degrees, which is still doable. And that's why these 2 vaccines, again, the manufacturing, how many doses will they manufacture for India? I mean, initially it will be given to the US, to the European countries, and by the time unless we have a sort of an understanding or tie-up or agreement with them. So as far as India is concerned, the Oxford and the Covaxin, the Bharat Biotech vaccine. And also we're starting the phase 2-3 trials. Dr. Reddy's has a tie-up with Russian Direct Investment Fund. And that is the Sputnik 5.
Yeah, Dr. Reddy, in fact, that's just landed, I think, a day ago.
Yeah. So Russia gave a preliminary approval to this vaccine even before the phase 3 trials had begun.
Which makes you wonder, or no?
Yeah, see, now the issue with vaccines is that only. Something which was done over the years, for 10 years, it used to, go on and on, the manufacturing, the safety, the immunogenicity of vaccines. But with these, with COVID, because researchers are working overtime all over the world, so within 1.5 years, we might have a vaccine. But again, you can't compromise on the safety. Even with Moderna and Pfizer, they're talking about the efficacy of the vaccine. But again, we don't have too much data on the safety. I mean, we need more data, more transparency for us to be confident enough about the vaccine. So safety is a big issue when it comes to vaccines. You don't want to give something to people which might create problems for them. So the Russian vaccine phase 2, 3 trials, once they're concluded in India, then we'll have enough, because the trials will happen in India. So we'll know more about it. Till now, again, the Chinese vaccines, the Russian vaccine, we don't have enough data, and their phase 3 trials haven't concluded. The late stage phase 3 trials of Moderna and Pfizer they're almost about to finish. So that's why the data is more conclusive about them. But again, safety, as I said, will be an issue.
Because a lot of people are worried about the side effects, because again, as you said, it's untried, untested, and done.
So one has to be really very careful. The other company is Novavax. It's again a US-based company. So India, I think Serum Institute has tied up with them. Again, they have some sort of agreement for 2 billion vials or something like that. So, but they're in the phase 2 trial. I think that's going to take a while. But if you look at the overall picture, I think it's going to take a while for the vaccine to land up. Whichever vaccine it is, see, initially it will only be given to healthcare workers and the frontline workers. So I think some 30 crore odd people might get it initially. That's what the government was talking about. And for that also, you need time. You need to manufacture those many doses. And by the time it reaches the frontline workers or the doctors or healthcare workers or the vulnerable population, it might be another 6-8 months. And then the general public. So see, vaccine is not something which is foolproof. I mean, the distribution, the manufacturing, by the time it reaches you, 2 shots in a gap of.
So you are saying at least till the end of next year is by
the time general public gets it, probably second half of next year or maybe beyond that. So it's going to take a while. Yes, maybe Feb onwards we might have a vaccine in place, but by the time the logistics happen, it will take another 6 months to 1 year. So for the public, so that's why the importance of social distancing, hand washing, and wearing a mask.
I'm going to take a short break, and we're going to come back and continue this conversation on a little bit more about, since we last spoke as to, what are your experiences with handling COVID patients and what advice you would give people also. But after a short break, so stay with us. Hello and welcome back to a conversation with Dr. Romel Tikku. He is the Associate Director of Internal Medicine at Max, and we were talking to him about Corona, about COVID vaccines. Doctor, before the break, you said, I think we'll have to at least wait till the end of next year before the vaccines are in play and have also been delivered. So that means we have to continue being careful. With winter rising, what is your advice to people? And, you spoke a bit in the initial. And also, what are the complications? Are you still going with the same care, start taking paracetamol? If you can just give some advice to our viewers as to what to do when you start seeing the symptoms instead of already rushing, to the already overburdened healthcare system.
See, right now, there's common cold also. And because of the pollution, people are getting runny nose, watery eyes, and things like that. And they're wondering whether it's COVID, but everything won't be COVID. So they have to get in touch with their doctors. They can guide them whether they really need a test, don't need a test. Again, you can't waste time. Beyond 2-3 days, then it becomes tricky, even COVID. So the earlier you diagnose it, the better it is. If you are a vulnerable population, then obviously you need to be tested on day 1. Otherwise, with young people who are up and about, they might be having allergic symptoms or COVID, pollution-related symptoms. But initial 2 days, you can take paracetamol, you can rest it out, isolate yourself. That's the most important thing, because if you have it, then if you isolate yourself, you're not spreading it. But if you keep running around, going for work everywhere, not talking to your doctors, then you'll spread it. And that's what has happened actually in Delhi. So initial 2 days, watch it out, talk to doctors. Beyond that, anyway, everyone needs to be tested. If they have any flu-like symptom, they need to be tested. And the ones who are in home isolation now, mild cases mostly are in home isolation. In home isolation, you really have to be at it. You have to keep checking your saturations. You have to keep looking at your symptoms, whether you have chest pain, whether you have breathlessness, whether drowsiness, and all these symptoms you have to let your doctor know about, so that he decides what you need. Because initial
Saturation
1
is
week,
oxygen levels with the
oxygen
oximeter.
levels, yeah. See, initial 1 week, it will be like flu. And after that comes the second week, where you actually see too many complications in, like, say, 30% of patients. And that's when you have an ongoing fever. And that's when you start coughing more and more. That's when you have some sort of constriction in the chest. And that's the time when you actually need the CT scan. Because the CT scan tells us whether there's a lung involvement and to what extent it is. Is it mild, moderate, severe? That helps us to decide, along with the symptoms and also the blood tests. Now, I would like to reiterate that you have to do blood tests every 3-4 days in the initial 10 days, because those inflammatory markers, the CRP, the ferritin, the D-dimer, tells us who's at risk, who's not at risk, and then combined with their symptoms. And in the second week, when you do a CT, it gives you a clear picture where you are heading, your inflammatory markers, your clinical picture, your CT scan. So then you decide if your saturations are normal, disease is mild, you can be treated at home with steroids also. But you have to keep a close watch. The moment you develop more symptoms and the saturations dip, you have to go to the hospital. Again, you don't
When
have to
should you
rush.
worry in terms of saturation when it falls below? Give me a number.
Anything less than 94%, you have to be extremely careful, and you have to get in touch with your healthcare workers. They'll guide you. But you don't have to panic and get up and go to the hospital, because that's not what you're supposed to do. Certain people have a baseline 92, 93, and especially when they're lying down in the night, then the saturation dips a little bit. So don't panic. Sit up, take a deep breath, check the saturation over a period of time, 2-3 minutes, recheck again, then talk to your doctors. See, sometimes it can be an erratic reading. So you have to be, you have to look at it consistently, whether it's falling every other minute, every other hour, you have to keep a check on it. And if it's less than 94, obviously, then it does tell you that there is lung involvement and you need to be careful. You need a scan, or if you're vulnerable, you need even an admission. So when is basically less than 94% saturation, ongoing chest pain, breathlessness, the inflammatory markers going up, persistent high fever, 2-3 days, not responding to paracetamol. So that's when you probably need admission. But again, talk to your doctors. And the ones who are in the hospital, we are keeping them in the wards. The ones who need mild oxygen support, they are in the ward. The ones who need more than that, they are in the ICUs. And we're again doing the prone ventilation. We're not putting them on ventilators because the prognosis is bad. And that's what we've been doing. And yes, steroids is still what works. And
that is the next question. A lot of people are apprehensive of taking steroids, but you're saying that steroids is really what is making the difference, the game changer.
Yeah, actually it is a game changer. And steroids it's not a new drug. It's been there for ages. It's cheap, inexpensive, and available readily everywhere. So even with the patients who have pneumonia are in home isolation, steroids is helping them in not progressing into the critical phase of the disease and not landing up in the hospital. So steroids have really helped. Most of the trials have shown that, and people with pneumonia and all that, they are being helped only by steroid. Apart from the fact that you also have to give them anticoagulants and maybe plasma or remdesivir, but increasing evidence now that plasma and remdesivir don't really help you. So lots of trials now about that also. Though we're still using it, but enough evidence that they might not be actually helping them. So we are still relying on supportive treatment and steroids. Steroids are a lifesaver for COVID complications. That's all I can tell you right now. And there's no other drug which can really help you.
No, I'm glad you put it out there, because, all the apprehensions is what I really want cleared by this interview. The other thing I want you to tell our viewers is the post-COVID. A lot of people think, ek bari ho gaya, so now I've got my passport to, go out. Do you think that attitude is right? There's a difference between a relapse and getting COVID again, a second time. Do you see that happening a lot? Both
second
cases?
Infections are not very common. If at all, they're very, very rare. There are a few cases in the world. A handful in India also. But again, it's something which is not seen commonly. But that doesn't mean that you get complacent. You stop wearing masks. You don't do social distancing. Don't wash hands, because you never know. If you're unfortunate, you might land up with a second infection, or you might get some other infection. This is the season of respiratory infections. You might get H1N1. You might get a community-acquired pneumonia. Because you're vulnerable, your body has taken a hit. For the next 2-3 months, you have to be extremely careful. And don't get into this gymming mode. People are ready to go to the gym and trying to, because for the last 2-3 months, they haven't been able to do that. Plus the fact that they've been at home COVID or post-COVID, whatever. But we've had young people losing their lives because they were going to the gym, they were doing treadmill, they were playing sports, because you don't have to stress your heart. For the next 2-3 months, one has to be extremely careful. Post-COVID symptoms will be there. Even with patients who had a mild disease or asymptomatic, they will experience some sort of post-COVID symptoms. And the commonest are headache, backache, body ache, dry cough, brain fogging, not able to concentrate on their work, insomnia, loss of appetite, they lose weight, stomach issues. And all these are basically post-COVID symptoms. And
do they go with time, or they?
Yeah, 2 to 3 months maximum. With time, usually within 2 months, they will go. But again, you need supportive treatment. Maybe you'll need a painkiller. Maybe you need something to sleep. Maybe you need some other vitamin or supplement or something.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need a check again, whether you're deficient, because if you're deficient, then the symptoms will worsen. So it's not life-threatening always, but in certain cases, yes. If you develop deep vein thromboclots in your legs, or if you develop pulmonary embolism, you can have a stroke, you can have a myocardial infarction or cardiac events, which happens to very, very few people. But if you're unlucky, you might end up with one, especially if you're exercising and if you're not having enough sleep, not working on your immunity. So good amount of rest, good sleep, good diet, and a reasonable amount of exercise. I would say 30 minutes of walk a day, starting post 1 month after you've recovered from the disease, should be enough. And, that should be more than enough. And it sort of gives your body some time to recuperate and get back to normal. So post-COVID symptoms, yes, one has to be extremely careful, and no need to go to the markets, not wear a mask just because you had COVID. You might catch something else. So be careful.
Which may be worse. Thank you so much for taking time out and talking to us, and also for being brutally frank and sounding a note of caution. I think that is needed, especially with the winter coming. And, before, as you said, it's going to be a year till the vaccine is really implemented. So we need to be careful. And thank you so much for taking this time out. And for all that you're doing, Doctor, I'm going to be circulating this video to all my friends also, apart from airing it on NewsX. So thanks a lot for this time.
Thank you so much for inviting.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.